This is Jim Fetzer with James Fetzer News with my special guest, Stephen Lendman, a well-known writer of progressive causes who has been among the most discerning in relation to contemporary events. Most recently, he has written about the New York car bombing incident, which appears to him to be another false flag attack. Stephen, could you elaborate?
Oh, Jim, thanks again for getting together. You're very kind to me. Of course, the event only happened on the 1st of May. Today is the 6th of May. So we slowly piece together information as we get it. I watch it. I watch the news reports. I see what's going on. We both know the history of past events. There have been so many false flags before. So I'm very suspicious. When something like this happens, I immediately fear the worst. And my feeling is that this may be similar to what happened over Christmas. The so-called Underware Bomber on the flight from Amsterdam to Detroit. As it turned out, he was set up. He was set up. All he had in his underwear was the power of a firecracker. And that whole incident just smelled to high heaven. This one does too. Why on earth would this guy want to do what he did? And how on earth, well, think of a few questions, Jim. I guess people can buy the materials that he bought. Excuse me. I certainly wouldn't call them a weapon of mass destruction. Fertilizer, propane, a few other elements. But number one, on a busy Saturday night, he found at least one parking place in Times Square.
That's pretty good.
That alone was a red flag for me. I live in downtown Chicago. I haven't owned a car in 20 years, but I can't imagine finding a parking place in downtown Chicago where I live, not in the heart of the city, a little bit north, but it is pretty busy. The only way to find a parking place is if by chance somebody pulls up as you're driving up to that spot. Otherwise, it's impossible. And the reports were that he had a second car, a so-called getaway car. Whether it's true or not, I have no idea. So he found two parking places in Times Square on a busy Saturday night. Well, red flag number one, red flag number two with two parking places. And then, this guy had a bachelor's degree in computer science and business administration. He had an M.B.A. Why on earth would a guy like, he was a financial analyst, why would he want to do something like this? For what purpose? We're all angry. Lots of us are angry, Jim. You're angry. I'm angry. I don't want to go out and blow up anything. I simply want to talk about it. I want to do it on air. I want to make YouTubes. I want to write articles. That's the way to somehow have a chance to change things. And you and I know, and I would hope anyone with some intelligence would know, that the only thing violence begets is more violence. It doesn't solve any problems. It just creates more of them.
Stephen, you mentioned the fertilizer, but I gather it wasn't treated in such a way that it was even explosive. And with regard to the Underware Bomber, I gather he was escorted through all the crucial checkpoints, even though he did not have proper documentation by an official whom I believe has been associated with the CIA.
Indeed. So the Underwear Bomber, he had a visa, but no passport. Now imagine getting on an airplane with no passport, an overseas flight. That's impossible. He was escorted on the plane. He bought a one-way ticket with cash. One red flag after another. And yet he got on, and he did what I guess he was set up to do. And I have a feeling that Faisal Shahzad did what he was set up to do. We don't know, but that's my assumption.
Stephen, you have mentioned in your brilliant article a number of recent other false flag examples, such as the Madrid train bombings in 2004, the 7/7 London Underground bombings in 2005, the 9/11 attack, which had all kinds of red flags hanging over it, the June 30th, 2007 Jeep Cherokee with propane canisters crashing into Glasgow International Airport. What's going on here, Stephen? Are these the tenacious tentacles of Al-Qaeda reaching around the world, or is something else taking place?
Well, Of course, Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is whatever you want to make of it, a CIA construct. Whatever people belong to, whatever organizations, Muslim organizations of these kinds, they're former CIA recruits. Osama was a CIA asset. I don't know that he knew it. He worked for the Pakistani ISI, but back in the 1980s, when we were trying to give in Zbigniew Brzezinski's words, Russia its own Vietnam. So we recruited Mujahideen fighters. Osama was one of them, and this is what we call Al Qaeda today. No, I don't think they have tentacles operating around the world. If they did, Jim, they probably could get hold of things that could really cause some trouble. They have never done it. You and I know that the 9/11 event, certainly the official story is complete mythology, complete bunk, and unfortunately most people still believe it, many don't, but too many still do. As far as Osama is concerned, David Ray Griffith has done marvelous work on him, on 9/11. He's reported pretty conclusive evidence that 9/11 was something other than what was reported, and that Osama died in 2001, and he wrote books on all of it.
It's amazing, isn't it? Now, one of his most recent articles, a study that appeared in Global Research, demonstrated that none of those phone calls purported to have made from any of the aircraft were genuine. They were all fake. And, of course, Elias Davidson, a wonderful, very meticulous scholar, has demonstrated the government has never been able to provide proof that any of these 19 alleged Islamic fundamentalists were aboard any of the planes. And Colonel George Nelson, a U.S. Air Force expert on air crash investigations, has pointed out that while there are, between the four planes, millions of uniquely identifiable component parts, the government has yet to produce even one of those from any of those alleged crash sites. What does this suggest to you, Stephen Lendman?
Oh, it's a phony baloney story to cover up the truth, Jim. One day the truth will come out, the public will know it, but, it'll be way late. The time to know the truth is now. The time to get people angry is now. And why do they do these things? Because they want to scare people. These are all fear tactics. 9/11 was a big one. You get these others, Madrid, 7/7 in London, the Christmas incident, the new one in New York. These are small, but they all add up. It's to scare the public. They use patsies as dupes. They'll pay the price. They'll put them away in prison, call them bad guys. The authorities will get the credit for taking bad people off the street, and the public doesn't know what really is going on. And of course, the media, Jim, the media makes it all possible by trumpeting the scare headlines round the clock, and they're doing it now on the New York incident. And it really is shameful. They are a partner in crime. There's no question about it. And without their reports, none of this could happen. The public would never be duped.
During the Nuremberg trial, Stephen, I believe it was Hermann Göring who observed that it's easy to gain cooperation from the people. All you have to do is to create the pretext of an external attack, and they will gladly surrender their liberty for the sake of security and support the government no matter what its ambitions. It appears that that's been going on here, and that these additional incidents, like the absurd case of the Underware Bomber or the earlier ridiculous case of the laboratory in the restroom with these chemicals that would require hours to concoct, and this latest Times Square incident are simply supposed to remind us of that fear factor to continue to manipulate us for political purposes. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. You can throw in Jose Padilla and how they ruined his life. And we made a video of Afia Siddiqui. I'll be discussing her case on my radio program, the Progressive Radio News Hour, this Sunday with her lawyer for the second time. And instill fear. And I think it was Joseph Goebbels who said, number 2, number 3 Nazi, whatever he was, that the bigger the lie and the more often you repeat it, the more likely people are to believe it. And it's true. So you get a 9/11, you get all these small ones. The media keep trumpeting it over and over again. People buy it, and the worst crimes go on. illegal wars of aggression, repressive homeland crackdowns. And this is what's happening now. And honestly, Jim, I expect worse ahead. So we need more of this. We need to get the word out more to more people more often. So enough of them catch on. And they need to take over, Jim. They need to spread the word to others. It's our only chance.
Stephen Lendman, I cannot thank you enough for being a strong voice for truth and justice in this world. This is Jim Fetzer thanking my special guest, Stephen Lendman. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim.